You've been diagnosed with mesothelioma, and there's questions in your mind about asbestos. Well, one question you may have is which products had asbestos in them? Hi, I'm Joe Williams. I'm a mesothelioma trial attorney in New York City, and I can answer this question for you. Over the past century, there's been about 3,000 products, 3,000, a lot of products, used in America that contained asbestos and exposed workers to this industrial toxin, this poison, this carcinogen known as asbestos. And of those 3,000 or so products, we know that they were primarily used as insulators and also for their durability, their strength, their tensile strength. And we can talk a bit about the insulation properties of asbestos cement and refractory and fire brick and pipe covering. And those things are products that workers often use and were exposed to asbestos from. There's also the strength and durability properties of asbestos, which were used in products such as floor tile and roofing products. Let's talk about some of those products here today. The first I want to talk to you about is joint compound. And joint compound, I think many of us know what that is. That's a product that even today is currently used in the same way that it was used back in the 60s and 70s, and that is to seal the joints between boards of sheetrock. Now today it doesn't have asbestos in it anymore because it was banned in 1977 by the Consumer Product Safety Commission, but prior to that time, joint compound from many manufacturers contained asbestos. And when this product was put on the walls in between these seams of sheetrock or on the nail or screw heads where the sheetrock was attached to the wall, the workers would sand down that sheetrock, creating lots of asbestos dust in their work zone. In addition, prior to that building material, sheetrock, which we know of today, walls used to be constructed of plaster. Metal lath put up, plaster mixed with water to create a slurry of plaster, which was then attached and applied to the metal lath. And that plaster, in many circumstances, contained asbestos. So when the worker, and perhaps the worker is you, but when the worker sanded down that plaster, that created asbestos dust which the worker breathed, which can cause mesothelioma. We know that asbestos was in floor tiles up until the mid to late 80s, even as late as 1986. And these floor tiles were used in banks and buildings and factories and schools throughout the United States for many decades. And they came in 9x9 or 12x12 sizes and contained asbestos, as well as other sizes. But workers would cut these floor tiles, snap them, creating dust. And that was a very well-known and documented exposure to asbestos. Other things contained asbestos as well, such as ceiling tiles in a drop ceiling, and they were cut to fit, causing exposure to workers. Roofing materials on pitched roofs in residential settings. Some of the shingles on pitched roofs contained asbestos. And on flat roofs in more of a commercial building, some of the rolled roofing, the base sheet and the rolled roofing felts, as well as the mastic that was used to seal various joints and the flashing materials that were used by professional roofers. Many of these products contained asbestos throughout the course of the last century. And one more thing is something that we know of as Bakelite, which electricians primarily dealt with in dealing with electrical panel boxes. And we all have one of these panel boxes in the basement of our house. And if you can imagine a large factory or a large industrial setting, the box is even bigger. And this Bakelite was a material behind the various switches, which was an insulating, fireproof material, but it was made with asbestos. And when that product was altered, it created dust which electricians and others could breathe. So these are just some of the many, many types of products which we know contained asbestos throughout the course of the last century and exposed many workers to asbestos dust, causing them to get mesothelioma. And there are many more products than this brief list which I'm giving you here today, and I'm sure you have many questions about asbestos and the various products that asbestos was used in. I'm Joe Williams, and every day we deal with these cases for mesothelioma victims, and we can answer your questions. So you should pick up the phone at the number listed below. That's my office number, and give us a call. I hope you found this video informative, and thank you very much for listening.